I think conventional risk management has failed for a number of reasons. Probably foremost among those is that people really don't challenge their assumptions. They don't challenge their assumptions about the nature of risk. They don't challenge their assumptions about probability. People used to believe, for example, that extreme events were extremely rare, when in fact we seem to be having a once-in-a-lifetime crisis every 3 to 4 years, if not every 3 to 4 weeks these days. They also, I think, looked at risk as something largely to be avoided rather than something that needs to be understood and taken for competitive advantage. Well, a couple of things. I think the first thing is it actually begins with the definition of risk itself. Most organizations today use a definition of risk that would say that it's any event that can adversely affect the achievement of your objectives. There's a problem with that to begin with, because it's not just an event, it also could be an inaction. And it also doesn't address the problem of whether or not your objectives are the right objectives to begin with. Once you move beyond the actual definition of risk, which I would suggest is actually more appropriately defined as the potential for loss or harm or missed opportunity, in other words, failure, that once you move beyond that, then organizations can be more systematic about how they understand it. Well, one of the first things to do is to understand what is the cost of failure. CFOs, because they have access to the financial data, can start to understand what are the consequences of strategic, operational, and reputational failures, because they all translate themselves pretty quickly into financial results, and a lot faster than one might think. By understanding what can go wrong, then you can do something about it. You can anticipate it, you can possibly prevent it, or if it does go wrong, then you can detect it quickly and respond quickly. Once you've identified those risks, then have you actually assigned an executive who's responsible for managing those risks? Because those are the ones who should be actually doing the assessments. And the assessment then should be looking at things like impact and velocity. How bad can it get, or how good can it get, and how fast can it get that way, and how capable are you of actually responding to that. Then the question is given what your understanding is of the potential exposure, how well are you actually managing that, or how capable are you? If you're not capable of it, then you need to improve. And then that really becomes the basis for setting a priority agenda for moving forward. But just simply answering those simple questions, which is, what could go wrong, how well prepared are we to deal with it, and what are our priorities, are questions that I think CFOs would want to be asking anyway. First of all, there's the risks of the strategy itself, and that really depends very much on the assumptions that you're making about your business model and the business environment that you're operating in, and you really need to effectively challenge those. Secondly becomes what I think is the traditional domain of risk management, which is how do you understand the risks to the strategy in terms of its execution, in terms of operations, reporting, and compliance. That's been the traditional domain of risk management, and it's largely about risk avoidance and the elimination of variability. And I think because CFOs have a lot of access to performance data, there's really not separate risk metrics. It's just the question of what's an acceptable level of variability in your performance, and how can you cost effectively eliminate it. That goes to the risks to the strategy. Much more fundamental, I think, are the risks of the strategy itself in terms of what's the competitive agenda and how is the organization gathering intelligence about its external environment. Most organizations, unfortunately today, tend to gather information that only confirms their current view of the world. Companies that are able to challenge the existing paradigm, challenge the way business is being done, are the ones who will have, and are willing to take the risk to make that challenge, are the ones who will ultimately enjoy the greatest competitive advantage.